everyone, welcome back to the Earthdawn Survival Guide, the podcast for all disciplines, paths, players, and game masters with your questers, Josh and Dan. I am Dan.
I am Josh.
And on today's podcast, we will be discussing all things triplical. I'm making up words as I go along because I can. Anyway, we're going to talk about 3 of the other orc tribes you can find in Cara Fahd. Why 3? Because they're so small a tribe that we can probably fit all 3 of them into this one episode.
We're into the section now on the minor important tribes of Cara Fahd. And so each of these doesn't even typically get a page. So we're just going to kind of run through these real quickly. And as the introduction to this section reads, though we cannot catalog them all, below are several Carad tribes and others of note by virtue of size, voice, or troublemaking capacity.
Exactly.
So these give you a little bit of a flavor that if you want to use them to flesh out for your own game, provide a little bit more information, that's fine. Most of these are small, like similar in scale to the Fists of Fahd that we talked about a couple of episodes back. Moshchuk's crew, which is, again, like, not even 500 strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some of them may be larger than that, some of them may be smaller, but for the most part, these are tribes that do not have any significant role in Greater Cara Fahd, other than just being a presence, different kind of flavors and styles and stuff like that.
Exactly. As a side note, we haven't given a shout out to the writers of this entire book, which is Jennifer Brandis and Chris Hepler. By the way, I found Chris has a blog. I looked him up. He's still writing, and he and Jennifer actually got married because they wrote this book while they were in college. So anyway, it's a neat little thing, and he absolutely gave credit to her. She did the yeoman's work. She wrote about 3,000 words a day. He wrote about 1,000 words a day or something along those lines, whatever pace that was. So it's a 3-to-1 ratio. By his admission, she did the yeoman's work on this book. Wanted to point that out.
Yeah, at some point in his reflections on these episodes where we've been talking about the Cara Fahd book, Lou did give props to both of them.
Oh, absolutely.
What they had put out.
Yeah. He was in admiration as well as you and myself that they did a fantastic job on this book and put it together in really a very quick amount of time. So kudos all around. We're going to begin with the Righteous Vipers. They have a new chieftain in the Righteous Vipers whose name is Orguk, and he speaks City Throlic, not just the foothills or Zet that you would come across. So if you're going to be using this orc tribe, by all means, Orguk is pretty well-rounded as far as that's concerned. He's more educated than one might actually suspect, but he is a huge mountain of a beast of an orc from Kratos, more than likely. The Righteous Vipers, all of them, most of them, have a chest tattoo of a hooded cobra that's flared. So it's, you know, if you played with G.I. Joe action figures back in the 80s, it looks kind of like that. Anyway, I made that up on the spot. But the Righteous Vipers all wear undyed horse skin pants or garb. They don't really have a whole lot of other animals around them, so when the horses die, maybe they get taken out. Who knows? That's what their clothing is made from. So they're distinct from other orc tribes. And Orguk had his daughter marry the Fists of Fahd's Moshtug's first son, who's also his nephew.
Yeah, we mentioned this a couple of episodes back. The Righteous Vipers also appear in the Blades collection in that first adventure. They are the other tribe that is involved in the events of what's going on there. And Orguk is the chieftain at that time, or in that adventure. So that is not a change that sort of happened between the events of that adventure, which canonically happened before Cara Fahd is refounded.
Fair.
That's the situation there.
So yeah, Orguk is looking for a alliance of some kind. And so this is what is happening is he married his daughter off to the Fist of Fahd's Moshtug's first son. Moshtug's second son is his nephew and son at the same time. So that's the weird tribe. The Righteous Vipers only have 51 raiders who ride very small, very sturdy horses. So they are in the troublemaking capacity that was mentioned at the earlier introduction to this chapter, not necessarily in the importance part, but...
The Righteous Vipers aren't really yeah, as you say, they're raiders. I don't feel that they are as much of a potential threat as Mashtug is in the way that I described earlier, or Zarass. But I get the sense that the move to form that alliance between the Vipers and the Fists of Fahd was more for the Vipers' safety and prestige, being such a small tribe as they are. Their alliance is shaky because
what? No.
Mashtug said something derogatory about Orguk and set off his Gahad, and they kind of fought a little bit. Have since mended ways, but things are a little bit cooler between them. And Mashtug's son is actually living with the Vipers rather than the other way around.
His daughter,
as is somewhat common, I think, for the husband, the male, to join the woman's household family as part of Cara Fahd. There does seem to be that kind of aspect of things as not a matriarchy, but a matrilineal society.
Mm-hmm.
That descent follows the mother's line.
Agreed. Yeah, and so of the 51 raiders that they've got, they live entirely off of raiding. They don't do any farming, and they don't do any other kind of domestication of things. So it's raiding only, and they reside in the Delaris Mountains. So I think just to the west of Cara Fahd. They mostly play on Resurrect's foxes, farms, and any hapless travelers that come by, and human miners that happen to be in the area as well doing their usual mining thing, because they're stationary, and so therefore they can be raided upon. Or they can be raided.
So these are, again, they're not like big political movers and shakers. They're not really significant as far as a force, but they can be annoying in terms of a group of like traditional orc raiders that are causing problems for a place that the group might be sent to deal with, or to be an additional twist or obstacle in their attempts to do something larger. The biggest question mark in terms of their potential in the future is it does mention Orguk has a couple of things going on. One, he is desperate to make alliances and to gather power for himself.
Yeah.
In fact, he will operate in a similar way to how he took over the Righteous Vipers, which is that he will sort of ingratiate himself or will do something with the leader or chieftain of another small tribe and win some kind of challenge or bet, I think potentially by cheating or being underhanded in some way to take over that other group. But the more interesting bit is that he has apparently been making overtures to Zarass in some ways. Because, as it says, his raiders will basically work with anybody if they think that there's a chance for riches or glory. The only potential downside there is that Mashtug does not like Zarass at all. And so if he finds out that Orguk is up to that, that is almost certainly going to cause problems, if not shatter their alliance entirely.
Yeah. So it looks like Orguk is always out for the bigger, better deal, to borrow a quote from a movie I saw a little while ago. And if his sights are set on Zarass Icethought and the zealotry that she's got, good luck with that, Orguk. Yeah. Seriously. That's going to be a fight. Just laying that out right there.
There's nothing particularly notable about this tribe other than the fact that they're a small tribe with small territory and they basically make their living by raiding and causing problems for their neighbors.
Yeah.
They're pretty stereotypical in that regard.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like, we need that sort of thing, and having a small tribe like this that can just kind of occasionally show up and cause problems for a group.
Well, and
you can really nice way to have like recurring characters, recurring adversaries or antagonists without super high stakes being involved.
Agreed.
I would feel that having Zarass as a foe or antagonist would be a much bigger deal than Orguk and his raiders.
Yes, his merry band. Zarass would be a higher stakes foe to throw in your adventuring party. I think the Righteous Vipers are just low enough on the totem pole that it's not going to be a problem, where if the Metal Fists come in and you alter that and maybe happen to kill their leader, the political fallout in Cara Fahd will change. Righteous Vipers, not so much. So, a little safer here.
If you're running a Cara Fahd campaign, these are folks that would likely be your problems in earlier circles.
Yeah.
As you sort of build up and become more of a movers and shakers in that society.
Yeah, I mean, this is 6 paragraphs, but it's densely worded paragraphs. And so we were able to mine a lot of information out of this because currently, to Josh's point, Zarass's Chargers, if you mess with them a little bit, the stakes are a little bit higher than the Righteous Vipers. Because right now, the Righteous Vipers are currently being ignored by Krathus Gron. So play with them all you want. The tribe has fallen on hard times. Mostrib recently set off, as you said, Orguk's Gahad, making a proposal to absorb the Vipers into the Fists. They did come to blows. And so they're currently being, and not exactly antagonistic to one another, but again, Krathus Gron has no time for this crap. Yeah. So Krathus Gron is not paying attention to them.
They are a small tribe. Their hard times is probably due to the fact that thousands of other orcs have moved into the area and cramped their style.
Yeah.
And so their livelihood, which was raiding and such before, like they don't have any interest in farming. They don't really craft anything worthwhile. They're just a warband, essentially. And there is not the opportunity for them to make their living the way that they did, which is making things difficult for them.
Yeah. And
makes them perfect as a kind of low circle, novice tier problem for groups to deal with, either directly or indirectly in the course of other stuff they might be doing. Yeah.
And they're just on the fringes of the territory as well. They're over in the Delaris Mountains. So they're not really involved in anything else central. So easy to throw the Righteous Vipers in. If you're trying to skirt Cara Fahd entirely, have them go down this road, the Righteous Vipers will be there. So they're not too involved, but they're just enough characterization and political intrigue to make it notable in case you happen to go that route. On to Henkar's Spears, or Bat Parul, as they were once known. They are located between Halsuk Pond and the Thundra's Rest. So very detailed, very specific place you can run into Henkar's Spears. There are 300 country orcs who hunt wild boar with spears. This is what they were 3 years ago. So the essayist involved in this description came across them at 2 different points in time. So this is from 3 years ago, and they only spoke Orzet. They only hunted wild boar with spears, and they were located between Halsuk Pond and Thundra's Rest 3 years ago. Now, upon returning, or encountering them again 3 years later, the chieftain is male, and the chieftain title is passed on to the sons or the nephews or the sibling's husband. So this is all patriarchal. Women are not involved in this whatsoever. However, only because there is little faith in spousal fidelity among this tribe.
Yeah, and I think broadly in more traditional nomadic orc society, it's pretty clear from even the earliest days that, again, the difference between a matrilineal and a patriarchal society, that is that frequently the men are the warriors and the warbands. Not that women are not afforded the opportunity. Capable. If they want to be warriors, they can. And
absolutely.
There is a certain amount of egalitarianism there. But
yes,
the idea being in a matrilineal society, you cannot deny the heritage. You cannot deny the parentage if you're tracing through the mother's line. It's not like a situation where a patrilineal society ends up wanting to have strong control of the women in order to prove that the offspring are theirs.
Yeah.
That can lead to all kinds of weird stuff. In this group, it seems like there's a possibility that a little bit more of because the orcs being passionate, Gahad being what it is, Astendar being one who frequently will come in, and nights of passion between orcs, you know who the mother is. If you're tracing the matrilineal line, then that's fine. It doesn't really matter who the father is. And so that's kind of what's going on here, is that if you are doing a bloodline descent, you know that your sister's children are related to you. Because she's your sister, there's that blood, and she bore these children. You don't need to worry about who the father is.
No.
One of the other things I didn't actually mention is that all of these minor tribes are actually, you kind of get varying degrees of before Krathus arrived and after.
Yes.
Because Getaft Icethought was sent ahead of time to scout and gather information and learn what's going on prior to the refounding, the declaration of Cara Fahd. And so you get a little bit of here's what they were like before, and when I returned, this is what they were like after. That's kind of how we get the note that, after the declaration, the Righteous Vipers are kind of fallen on hard times. And we have a similar kind of thing here. We don't have as much beforehand with Henkar spears, except that they were called something else before, and they're now called this because of what happened. And that is that the prior chieftain died, and so the husband of his sister, who was a city orc from Travar, took over, and his name is Henkar, and that's why they're now Henkar spears.
Exactly. Because the widow, her husband died, yes, and she remarried, per se. So her new husband is Henkar from Travar, and he inherited the title. So it's one of those, it's passed on to the males. So he opened the tribe to welcome the city orcs because he himself is a city orc. And this widened and deepened the talent pool that he saw was beneficial to them, and also the knowledge pool that he saw would be beneficial to this tribe. So the Bat Parul, as it was once known, was therefore renamed, and they did capitalize the named part, after the internal resistance to this change kind of faded out. Because as people looked around and saw, we are better. Now that the city orcs have been able to come in, we have more talent now, we have more knowledge now, and so it's making all of us better. And so the population roughly increased to about 1,000 people.
Yeah, and Henkar is a swordmaster, and he was one of the champions of Travar, as they're sort of known.
Yes.
And got a bunch of his buddies from Travar to come and help train the new folks. The spears don't have a cavalry. They live in the woods. They are the premier source of infantry for Cara Fahd.
Yes.
And they are a tribe who was small and is on the upswing. I think one of the things that they demonstrate is the worthiness of the importance of the value of openness and diversity and not being held so strongly to tradition. Circumstances went well for them.
Yeah.
Jekvi, who is who's Henkar's wife, met Henkar, when she went to go find out what was going on shortly after the declaration, and they met and they fell for each other.
Yeah. Pure coincidence.
Yeah, it was pure chance that he happened to be the one who ended up in charge when her brother died, and basically said, hey, if there are orcs who are coming from Travar or Europa or Thrall or Zarass or wherever, and are coming here but want to be part of a more traditional orc tribe, we welcome you. And that has grown the numbers, and the older members of the tribe have realized, this is actually really good for us because we have more people, and they are thriving. They are, in a sense, a demonstration of what Krathis wants to build for Cara Fahd, and that is a society and a culture that is stronger because it is bringing these various people together. The tribe, it mentions, it feels very cosmopolitan because they have orcs from all across Barsaive.
Yes. And it's not that Henkar is a believer in Krathis' vision. He just happened upon this circumstance, saw that he could make it better, and is enjoying his pretty stable lifestyle by just, hey, this is working. Why mess with it? So it's not that he's a believer or he's out for an opportunity or he's just he's taking advantage of something. He's just kind of like, you know what? I didn't even get lemons. I'm making lemonade over here. He found the lemon grove.
Yeah, there is a little bit of fear, not as a true believer. He's taking the opportunity, and it is mainly his relationship with Jevki that is keeping him there, because the original members of the tribe are not going to leave their ancestral home. Henkar is maybe a little bit mercenary.
Probably a little bit.
But is in a circumstance where things are working out for him. He doesn't have any huge... That's probably why, even though they're on the upswing, why they continue to be a minor tribe. Yes, they will provide troops if need be, but otherwise, I suspect that he's kind of enjoying his retirement almost in a way.
Yeah.
Which is fine. That's cool.
Yeah, he's a tournament champion, so he's not exactly somebody to miss an opportunity. And so he knows, fight for what you got in the tournament.
Charismatic. He's personable.
Yeah.
He might not be the best leader from a military tactics or political standpoint, but he's got the social skills as a swordmaster that probably makes it easier for him to win people over and manage as a personality to kind of manage this tribe.
Yeah. So the tribe now, since it's been 3 years, where they only spoke Orzet before, only had 300 country orcs before. Now the tribe primarily speaks Throlic, I'm guessing due to Henkar's influence, since he spoke Throlic as well, and serves as Krathus's foot soldiers. So like you said, they don't have a cavalry, but they do have an infantry, and they do serve as foot soldiers. So, there's progress being made on this group here. Not a bad group to use. I could see a game master easily throwing this one in here as a personable, welcoming set of orcs that are not just going to raid you because they do serve another purpose. They don't actually just raid the Krathus's foot soldiers.
I could see there being some issues with them from more traditional purist orcs.
Yeah.
It does mention that a lot of the traditional practices of the Bot Perul, which was the tribe before they started growing, before they got taken over and became the Spears.
Yes.
Is that a lot of those practices have sort of been absorbed and even fallen out of fashion. And I could see more traditional orcs being upset that these ways of life are being lost.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly, again, if we want to talk about Moshtug.
Yeah.
Probably does not think very highly of them, where they have switched over to speaking primarily Throlic, and a lot of these traditional practices are gone. These are just more dwarves masquerading as orcs, or however it is that he would put. And there are probably other tribes and such that would have similar reactions to it.
Agreed.
Where they live down in the southern part of Cara Fahd in the forests and jungles, they would potentially be ones that would come into conflict with Zarass, because that's where she's operating.
Yep.
But yeah, they're a neat little tribe, and it's, again, an example of here's something that is kind of changed and a different, slightly different take, but is otherwise still a somewhat traditional Carad group.
Yeah. So somebody swooped in and set them on the right path, and they're maintaining that path. And that's good. That's good to go from there. So on to the Thunderborn Cavalry. This tribe hangs out near the Greenheart River. These are a special kind of orcs. They're thin, long-legged orcs. They have 600 orcs in total, about 100 riders. But what the Thunderborn Cavalry makes them distinct is that they ride dire beasts, not Thundra, not horses. They specifically only ride dire. Their cavalry is quite fierce and generally unfriendly.
Yeah, well, dyers are generally unfriendly. They take after their mounts very well.
The best picture of a dire, by the way, is in the Creatures of Barsaive, first edition, pages 20. Oh, man, that is a beautiful picture. Laubenstein's art as well, and perfect for that. So yeah, imagine riding that beast. Pause now, go look at the picture, come back, welcome back, look at that and try to imagine riding that, because you're not riding on the haunches or the chest or the back. You're riding on its neck. And that is a specific...
Yeah, and because of the way their heads are very, flat, they don't really have the mouth structure to be able to take a bit and bridle at all.
Yeah.
And so the riders basically need to control them with just their legs.
Yes.
The dyers they are scary animals. They are grumpy. Yeah. They are very strong.
Mm-hmm.
One of my biggest regrets ever in a game I ran was allowing Windling Beastmaster to bond with a dyer.
Oh man, yeah.
Because it was a cavalry mount, and the cavalryman that rode it got killed in a fight. And as is often the case with cavalryman mounts, the dyer was going to go off and pine away, and the Windling Beastmaster was like, "Oh no, I can't let that happen," and rolled pretty well on an animal bond, and I didn't want to make my wife cry, so succeed.
Yep.
Because she rolled well enough. I'm like, yeah, okay. And that dyer then proceeded to cause me great grief in any kind of fight situation, because it would basically go in and stomp to death whatever they would go up against.
Yeah.
Because it has like a strength step of like 14 or 16 or something like that in the original.
It's amazing now, yeah. You go look that one up. So yeah, the Thunderborn Cavalry specifically uses the Dire in this fashion. They have a signature move called the Horse Killer, where the Dire would run up, impale the horse on one of its long horns, shake it, and then toss the horse aside with its rider still on it. That's how strong these guys are.
So in the 4th edition GM's Guide, the Dire is on page 278. Strength step 12, toughness step of 13.
Mm-hmm.
Charge rank 5 if it's just on its own, if it's not being used as an actual like cavalryman mount, in which case the rider's charge would apply.
Mm-hmm.
The Dire may spend additional successes from an attack test to throw its approximately human-sized or smaller opponent. Each success throws the opponent 2 yards, and the opponent treats this distance as falling.
Uh-huh.
It also has Overrun, which is another like trample-related. It's big and nasty, and
it's gonna mow you
surprisingly,
down.
actually does not have willful, which means it's actually not more difficult to bond with it.
No, it's big, dumb, and big. Yeah, it's big and dumb
and nasty.
So.
In comparison, the Thundra Beast, strength step 11, toughness 12. So the Dire is actually a little bit stronger than the
tougher
Thundra Beast.
Yeah. So Dires are pieces of work. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
And each member of the Thunderborn Cavalry gets to choose their mount before they reach puberty. So this is a long-standing bond with this creature, with the Dire and the Thunderborn Cavalry members. But this tribe subsists entirely on Dires for meat, for milk, for clothing, so the hides and the furs, etc. Everything that this whole tribe runs on is based upon a relationship with the Dire animal. They occasionally raid. This is again before 4th edition. They occasionally raid to Vivane for other clothes, bread, pots, baskets, and whatnot. I'm assuming they're pretty darn successful because they come back with all this stuff from Vivane. So
the Greenheart River that they are along is sort of the border between Cara Fahd and Vivane.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of near that territory, and that's why they raid into it. One of the interesting things about this tribe in sort of present-day Cara Fahd, that is to say at the time that this book is written, is that they didn't even have a name as a tribe originally.
Fair.
The chieftain, when Krathus showed up and declared Cara Fahd, realized that they might be overlooked as a result of that, and looked to ally herself and her tribe with worthy partners.
Yeah.
But the larger cavalries, the Metal Fists and the Broken Fang and such, really didn't, they were like too small to be of interest.
Yeah.
But they ended up, she discovered, with the Thunderers, who we talked about several episodes back.
Yeah, they studied Titan Stroke Greybeard.
Yeah, Titan Stroke Greybeard and the Thunderers kind of discovered that they shared some similar traditions, swore an oath of mutual aid. But in addition, I think in part because of their presence close to Vivane, the chieftain of the Thunderborn has been inviting tacticians and generals from other tribes to come and teach her people how to fight. Yes, we will fight in the coming war, but are perhaps more afraid of potential invasion by the Therans before that actually happens, and so they want to be ready when that time comes. Exactly.
So also a smaller tribe, and the chief's name is Hecritinge, which I find an interesting little assimilation of Scrabble tiles. But the tribe is realizing that, yes, they have their special little niche. They ride Dire. They rely on Dire. They found inspiration and or mutual aid in the Thunderers, and therefore partially adopted the Thunderers' name to become the Thunderborn Cavalry, and are seeing the future, the need of their tribe in the oncoming war with Thera. And so they're at least not stuck in their ways. They are, well, we have to be this way all the time. They're still trying to forge a better life and be prepared for their use.
Yeah, they're holding on to their traditions where the spears that we just talked about are not.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But she also recognizes the changes that are going on in Cara Fahd and recognizes, especially where they are so far from Claw Ridge, that their best chance at survival, essentially, is to build themselves into a force that will be of value to Claw Ridge and to Krathus, sees their service, their potential service as a cavalry, as a dire cavalry, to be the best way to achieve that. And so has been taking action to make that worthwhile. Their tribe hasn't necessarily been growing the way that the Spears have, but is a situation where they recognize what's going on and are taking steps to adapt to the new situation in this part of Barsaive.
Yeah. So I like all of these as a little insight into what other orc tribes can be. And I understand they're just small enough now not to be political movers and shakers, but they have use for little altercations here and there, or some flavor that you want to throw into your campaign. If you're going to run right through the middle of Cara Fahd, maybe you'll come across Henkar Spears. If you're going to run on the outskirts of Cara Fahd, maybe you'll come across the Thunderborn Cavalry or the Righteous Vipers. So knock yourself out. They all have uses, but nothing that's going to disrupt the metagame going on in the background of all of 4th edition.
A lot of what these minor tribes can do is provide interstitial adventures and challenges and problems for a group to deal with. Again, if you're looking at a larger Cara Fahd-based campaign, that can provide adventures and challenges that are not campaign arcs. If they're working for Cara Fahd, okay, we hear there's a problem that's going on. We got a missive from the Thunderborn Cavalry. Head down to southern Cara Fahd and find out what's going on and help them deal with it. Oh, there's some issue that's going on down there with Therans or whatever, and so they can meet this tribe and over the course of that, gain allies and maybe work towards a more unified Cara Fahd. But it's not in and of itself, oh, we're going to have a major campaign arc dealing with this tribe of 500 people.
Exactly.
Like that.
Yeah. So three nice little minor tribes. It fleshes out more of the Cara Fahd region, and again provides 3 other facets to what can be considered an orc, and or if you want to include any of these tribes as a backstory for your character, either you were pitted against them, they affected the tribe that you come from, or you are from one of these tribes. It just helps flesh out your character that you want to play in your game. So I like everything that they've been doing so far with all of these specific tribes. They are nicely well-rounded and multifaceted across all orcs.
Yeah, and we're in a situation here now. We had talked a lot about, with the major tribes that we had gone through, how each of them is unique and special and different in notable ways. And we're still sort of seeing that, just not to the same extent with these. Like, all 3 of these are more traditional orc tribal units, but they each have their own personality and objectives and ways that they are interacting with the new political situation in Cara Fahd.
Absolutely.
The Vipers being basically a group of bandits with legitimacy that are struggling because of the new situation. You've got the Thunderborn, who are still traditional orcs, are kind of unique in the fact that everything is based around the Dyers as opposed to horses and Thunder Beasts, which is more traditional.
Yeah.
But are also recognizing Thera is likely to have a lot more interest in what's going on because of this resurgence, and we need to make ourselves valuable in order to be protected, because we're likely to be among the first, if the Therans invade, to encounter the Therans.
Yeah.
Whereas then you have
the Spears.
Here's one of the outcomes of City Orc from another part of Barsaive coming and interacting with a traditional tribe, and how that has shaped and changed the tribe over the past couple of years. Yeah. Dramatically so. The tribe is larger and more powerful and more prosperous, but a lot of those more traditional aspects of their culture are getting lost because those original members are now outnumbered by the newer arrivals.
Yeah. So I think that this is the whole book has been fantastic to read for my first time, and probably Josh's 3rd or 4th, just to go through all of them. And all the tribes are absolutely worthy of including in your game somewhere. We have 4 left, so we'll get to them. Promise. We shall. So any final thoughts, Josh?
No, I think we are good for now.
Fair enough. So until next time, folks, go ride a dire for your legend.
Good night, everybody.